Welcome back to Mystery Files, and I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for always trying to find the clue, and remember in this episode to try to find the clue, find out what it is, and put what it is with the timestamp in the comments to be entered into the next giveaway. The last giveaway was won by Becky, so Becky, congratulations, you did awesome. I think you got like 30 clues. That's unbelievable. Today was actually a request, believe it or not. Yes, I do read all of your requests, and when I read this one, I was like, okay, this one involves, stuff I might not be comfortable with, but I looked into it, and it definitely is a case that needs to be shown to you guys. So, without any further ado, I'll keep it all at that, but let's get this up to at least 60 likes. I know you can do it, and a new thing. If you guys share this video right now at least 20 times, I will then come out with an extra episode every week. And yes, I can see who really shares it. So, without any further ado, as of now, it's time to slip into a mind that's not our own. Let's go. In the dense Oklahoma woodlands, a decades-old summer nightmare still haunts all who hear its telling. And our tragic tale opens up in Mayes County, 30,000 strong, yet cast under a dark shadow since that vicious June night. With Tulsa 50 miles west and infinite forest bordering the remoteness, the rustic camp had sparkled as a sanctuary for these young girls seeking adventure annually since 1928. Until that is, unseen evil emerged from the shadows that year. No child had faced peril in those woods. And that's where you're going to meet Michelle Hoffman, a 15-year-old counselor relishing her 7th guiding summer, having aged out of attending herself. Little did she know on intake day what darkness was to descend. And as Hoffman chatted it up with this shy new camper, Doris Milner, she remembered her own fearful first days in this environment years ago. And the looming canopy blocking all light once sunset hit proved intimidating for any newcomer. But Hoffman reassured Doris's mother her experienced guidance would ensure safe passage through the initially anxiety-riddled initiation all campers faced when first witnessing the forest's consuming blackness. The scenic 2-mile wooded drive from Locust Grove town could never foreshadow such settings' potential for vice. After a mere hour bus ride from Tulsa, the 130 registered girls leapt into the fresh air, crossing the threshold into Camp Scott's boundaries, unaware of the secrets that it held. And that's when Hoffman personally escorted young Doris, just 8 years old, to Kiowa tent number 8, chosen for its proximity to the latrines and the kitchen. And once she got inside, she met fast friends in fellow 8-year-old Lori Lee Farmer and 9-year-old Michelle Guse. And despite any shyness, this laughter and play came naturally between the trio as counselor Carla Willett looked on contently. And by nightfall, their tent bustled with as much giggly chaos as any other on the campgrounds. And then comes lights out for the preteens, and an evening thunderstorm then rippled through, only tightening bonds as the girls weathered the hours huddled together. If only an act of God had been their sole disturbance destined to prey on their vulnerability out there, things would have turned out much different. Then, as the sun rose by about 8 a.m., signs of an unfathomable crime perpetrated under forest cover emerged. And as word of this accident trickled back to Tulsa, investigator insights at the scene revealed precisely how vicious and deliberate the events at Kiowa 8 had been. Farmer and Guse had been gruesomely and tragically bludgeoned to death, while strangulation stole Milner's final breaths. carnal abuse and such savagery towards children whose purity left them defenseless against an entity appearing out of nowhere to enact brutal fantasies without conscience. The state in which Wilhit discovered the tiny victims burned horrid images into her memory. Why had one girl been carried away and dumped somewhere else? In fact, that moment where murderous eyes watching her, taking sadistic pleasure in the counselor's horror upon recognizing the discarded remains? For most parents, by 2:15 p.m., euphoric reunions replaced the separation anxiety that had built up. But for 3 sets of mothers and fathers, only devastation loomed ahead. In the preceding darkness, multiple reports of alarming disturbances filtered back in hindsight. For one, moaning arose from outside around 1:30 a.m., prompting a counselor's fruitless search for its distressing origin. An hour later, in tent number 7, flashlights temporarily blinded a startled girl without explanation. And by approximately 3 a.m., one camper awoke to screams calling out for her mother, while another heard distinct crying. And in the purported getaway period between 2 and 3 a.m., a nearby resident noted peculiar traffic on the road flanking Scott grounds. I mean, the blood soaked into the soil told of the victim's suffering, clawing desperately at their attacker. Mattresses and towels appearing wound with carnage hinted at failed efforts to sanitize the location. Shoe impressions inside and outside Kiowa 8 muddied theories, some dimensions different, suggesting multiple perpetrators. Duct tape, cord, and a flashlight littered the area, and one vital fingerprint lifted from the torch could not be matched to any known felons. Thus, the investigation pivoted towards what mastermind had been staking out these murders ahead of time. In frightening retrospect, a dumped-out counselor cabin from April held an anonymous note proclaiming the explicit mission to kill 3 girls in one tent. And it was signed cryptically by the self-declared killer. Camp leadership sickeningly dismissed the act as a joke, rather than heeding appropriate warning. And then, all of a sudden, a break. On June 16th, Sheriff Glenn Weaver declared finding the murder weapon itself. Yet contradicting reports denied this development by District Attorney Sid Wise just as rapidly. In any event, police canines picking up scent trails led to a cave situated 2 miles from the camp, and inside a flashlight battery matching the discovered light, eyeglasses potentially stolen from the camp during the crimes, and photos of unknown women. Analyzing the photos, Gene Leroy Hart was pinpointed as a suspect in the targeted slayings, but he would not be the only seeming person of interest to emerge. Hart immediately struck authorities as a viable culprit, with prior convictions for assault and kidnapping preceding his 1973 escape from Mays County Jail. So all this suspicion compounded around this Cherokee man, and for years his tribal community allegedly harbored his fugitive status. This obsession with tracking Hart defined Sheriff Weaver's agenda for resolving this case. And after $1.25 million was dedicated to the largest Oklahoma manhunt ever, the FBI closed in on Cherokee tribal land. And then there, on April 6, 1978, Hart was captured once more, hiding in a cabin after nearly 5 years evading capture. And to his sympathetic Native supporters, Hart made for the perfect foil to draw attention from a flawed investigation. Focused scrutiny on other sexual assaultists nearby or other leads were ignored, they claimed, in the crusade to convict Hart swiftly under the media's pressure. Nonetheless, Hart was detained at the state penitentiary to await capital trial. And then from March 19th until May 30th, 1979, sensational prosecution arguments emphasized Hart's glasses at the crime scene with duct tape strands consistent with his hair sample. The defense, though, combated such circumstantial suggestions of his presence, Rather, they proclaimed Weaver planted the glasses from prior victims, while Hart openly copped up to those separate attacks. And then, in a surprise witness bombshell, local diner waitress Dean Boyd took the stand to relay seeing an incredibly nervous man 15 miles from Camp Scott, matching the composite image in the early AM after the slaying. Though nameless initially, police records soon connected this report to one William Stevens, a convicted sexual assaultist matching said description. And then an even more unsettling testimony surfaced next. Stevens' friend Dwayne Peters took the stand to allege loaning Stevens the exact flashlight model that was identified. Most disturbingly, Peters recounted Stevens admitting to the grisly deeds in October 1977 during a conversation. Yet, despite accruing supporting accounts painting Stevens or mystery accomplices as potential perpetrators, the jury reached a verdict in under 5 minutes. And on March 30th, 1979, Gene Leroy Hart was acquitted unanimously for the slaying of Lori Farmer, Denise Milner, and Michelle Guse. And then Hart actually collapsed dead of heart failure on June 4th, 1979. But the final Camp Scott secrets had yet to be unearthed from the shadows. So nearly a decade later, in 1989, advanced forensics sequencing of original semen samples found 3 of 5 DNA markers consistent with Hart's genetic profile. Had justice been robbed by inconclusive evidence in 1979 all along? So then these civil suits launched against Camp Scott by victims' families in 1985, but those went nowhere. And doors remained indefinitely shuttered on the Girl Scout access to those fated acres ever again. And in the end, Camp Scott shuttered its gates and never welcomed anyone ever again. Now, part of the pantheon of unsolved murders, the horrid crimes at Camp Scott remain pored over by amateur sleuths hoping to find the truth. Only more theories and dreadful lore around Camp Scott murders persist today, through new eyes reanalyzing the twisted intricacies, seeking elusive closure to an unspeakable case. And if you know anything at all about any of these murders, please contact your local police department right now. Whoever did these heinous acts, whether it be Hart or somebody else, deserves to be caught, prosecuted, and spend their life in jail, if not worse. So just by any chance, if any of this audience that this goes out to knows that this might not be the truth or there's more to the story here, please, I beg of you, share what you know to somebody that can help. Alright guys, that's all I have for you today. I know this story can hit at home for a lot of people that have children, and that's why I kind of debated telling this one. And I definitely did lower down the language in certain parts, so if you want to know exactly what happened, you can read it on your own time, on your own accord. But since this story was given to me by one of you, I felt sort of an obligation to do it, and especially since it hasn't been solved, that really aggravates me. I mean, I'm not sure how much 3 out of 5 DNA markers means. I mean, could that mean a distant cousin? Or could it mean somebody that's in your family tree that's, I don't know. I really don't know. If somebody could educate me about that in the comments as well, that would be awesome. But I want right now you to tell me in the comments what you actually think happened. And also, if you haven't already, please like this video so we can get it out to a broader audience and maybe find the truth. That's all I got for you guys. I love you. I'll see you very soon. Cheers.